Picture this. Sunday morning. Louisville in December. The kind of cold that gets into your bones before you step outside. You're standing in your kitchen pouring coffee into the same blue mug you've used for 20 years. The house is quiet. It's been quiet for 6 weeks. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet where two people live under one roof, and one of them has decided the other doesn't exist. Your wife walks in. She hasn't said good morning to you in 6 weeks. Hasn't touched your hand. Hasn't sat beside you on the couch. Hasn't looked at you like you're a person instead of a piece of furniture she forgot to move. She put you in the guest bedroom 6 weeks ago because your breathing irritates her. She doesn't pour herself coffee. Doesn't sit down. She drops an envelope on the counter and slides it toward you. 3 credit card statements. $14,000. Spa weekends in Lexington. A designer coat from a boutique on Bardstown Road. Dinners with her sister Linda at places you and she have never been to together. She says, "I need these handled by Friday, Robert." That's her first complete sentence to you in 4 days. Not good morning. Not how'd you sleep. Pay my bills. You know what I said? One word. We'll get to that. That was my kitchen. My wife. My 28 years. My name is Robert Calloway. I'm 57 years old. I retired 2 years ago from Louisville Gas and Electric, where I spent 31 years as an electrical engineer. Diane retired a year before me. She was an assistant principal at Jefferson County Schools. We raised a daughter, Sarah, who's 26 now and lives in Nashville. For most of those 28 years, I would have told you I had a good marriage. Not perfect. Nobody's is. But solid. The kind where you know who's picking up the groceries and who's locking the doors at night. Routines. I mean that as something good. Routines meant we were still showing up. I remember a Saturday in 2014. Sarah was in high school. Diane and I drove out to Bernheim Forest. No agenda, no plan. Just drove. She put her hand on my arm while I was driving and said, "I like this." That's all. I like this. I didn't know it at the time, but that was the last Saturday I can point to where she touched me without wanting something in return. The distance started after she retired. Slow. The kind you don't notice because it moves like weather. She joined a book club with her sister Linda. Started going to wine tastings. Weekend trip to Asheville. Then another. She'd come back different. Not happier, just elsewhere. Like she'd visited a version of her life she preferred and resented coming home. By the time I retired, she'd already drawn a line I couldn't see. I was on one side. Everything she enjoyed was on the other. The guest bedroom started as just for tonight because she had a headache. That was 6 weeks ago. The headache never left. Or maybe I was the headache. Here's the thing nobody tells you about being frozen out by the person you married. It doesn't feel like rejection. It feels like erasure. You're standing in your own kitchen and you're not sure you're allowed to be there. I tried. Made dinner twice that first week. She ate in the other room. Suggested a weekend trip to Brown County. She said she was busy. Asked if she wanted to talk. She looked at me the way you'd look at someone asking a question in the wrong language. Then came the envelope. $14,000. I need these handled by Friday, Robert. I looked at the statements. Spa treatments. Boutique shopping. A dinner at Proof on Main that cost more than our weekly groceries. All with Linda. None with me. 28 years of yes. Yes, I'll fix it. Yes, I'll cover it. Yes, I'll sleep in the guest room. Yes, I'll pretend this is normal. I set my coffee mug down on the counter. No. She blinked. Actually blinked, like the word didn't compute. Like it was a sound she'd never heard from me before. Excuse me. No. I'm not paying those. Robert, these are due Friday. Then you should figure that out. She stood there for maybe 10 seconds. Her mouth opened, closed. She picked up the envelope and walked out of the kitchen. I heard the master bedroom door, the one I wasn't allowed to sleep in, close. My hands were shaking. I held the mug with both hands to stop them. Not from anger. From something I didn't have a word for yet. 28 years of saying yes. And the first time I said no, she looked at me like I'd broken a contract. I sat in my truck that afternoon. 30 minutes. Engine off. December cold coming through the windows. I wasn't ready to go back in. Wasn't ready to hear whatever she'd planned next. I called Ed Marsden. Ed and I worked together for 19 years. He'd been through his own divorce 7 years ago. Amicable, but it aged him. She hasn't touched you in 6 weeks, and she's handing you her shopping bills. Ed said, "That's about the size of it. Robert, you need to talk to a lawyer." I don't want a lawyer. I want my wife back. Which wife? The one from Bernheim Forest or the one who just invoiced you? I didn't answer because I didn't have one. Monday. She didn't mention the bills. Didn't mention anything. She moved through the house like I was something she was navigating around. Poured her own coffee. Left the house at 10. Came back at 4. Didn't say where she'd been. Tuesday. She had Linda over. I was in the garage changing the oil in my truck, something to do with my hands, and I could hear them through the kitchen window. The window was cracked 2 inches. They didn't know. Linda's voice. You told him no more closeness and he's still staying? Diane, he's never going to leave. You have to push harder. Diane, he said no to the bills. Linda, good. That means he's waking up. Which means you need to move faster. I stood there with engine oil on my hands. Frozen. Move faster toward what? Wednesday, I went to see a lawyer. Ruth Chin on 4th Street. Not because I was ready. Because I was scared. There's a difference. Ruth asked me one question. Does your wife have independent income? She has her pension, but she hasn't paid a single household bill since she retired. And the credit cards? Joint account. But the spending is all hers. All since she moved me out of the bedroom. Ruth nodded slowly. That's not accidental, Robert. That's positioning. The words sat in my stomach like a stone. Thursday, 6:45 p.m. I came in from the garage, and the house smelled different. Diane had cooked. Not heated something up, cooked. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. The dining room table was set. 2 plates. Candles she'd pulled from the hallway closet. She was standing by the stove in a blue dress I hadn't seen in 2 years. She smiled at me. An actual smile. I thought we could have dinner together, she said. I've been thinking about us, Robert. Stay with me here, because I want to be honest. I wanted to believe it. 28 years of loving this woman and a roast chicken and a blue dress was enough to crack something open in my chest. She poured wine. We sat. She asked about the truck. She never asks about the truck. She laughed at something I said, reached across and touched my hand. For 40 minutes, I had my wife back. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Linda. Excuse me, she said, and stepped into the hallway. I could hear the low murmur of her voice. Couldn't make out words. She came back 2 minutes later. Same face. Different person. Actually, I need the car this weekend. Linda and I have plans in Lexington. The candles were still burning. My wine glass was still warm where she'd rested her fingers against it. I looked at her and understood something I should have understood weeks ago. The dinner wasn't reconnection. It was a deposit. She was investing 40 minutes of warmth to withdraw a weekend and a car. Take the car, I said. She smiled. Thank you, Robert. I didn't smile back. Cleared the dishes. Went to the guest room. She took the car to Lexington that weekend. 2 days. Didn't say when she'd be back. I spent Saturday in the garage rebuilding a carburetor I didn't need to rebuild. Sunday I sat in the kitchen with my coffee and noticed something I'd missed for months. Her coat on the hook by the door had a different perfume. Not the one I bought her for Christmas 3 years ago. Something sharper. Something that cost more. She came back Sunday evening. Dropped her bag in the hallway. Walked past me without a word. Then Monday morning, a new angle. You've been different, she said. Standing in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. Not sad. Accusing. Different how? Cold. Distant. You used to at least try. I looked at her. The woman who'd moved me to the guest bedroom. Who'd handed me $14,000 in bills. Who'd cooked me dinner to borrow a car. I used to do a lot of things, Diane. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm tired. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she said something that stopped me cold. Maybe I should call Sarah. Let her know what's going on with her father. Go ahead. Call Sarah. Something in my voice made her step back. She didn't call Sarah. She grabbed her keys and left. Friday, I started doing what Ruth told me to do. Quietly. Photographed every room. Pulled copies of financial records going back 3 years. I wasn't angry. I was just thorough. There's a difference. The financial records told a story I wasn't ready for. 18 months of spending I hadn't noticed. Not just the $14,000 on the recent statements. A separate credit card, one I didn't know existed, with $41,000 on it. Spa retreats, weekend in Charleston, boutique charges, and a payment to a real estate agent in Prospect. A real estate agent. She'd been looking at condos. I sat at the kitchen table. My hands did that thing again. Shaking, quiet, like they didn't want me to notice. She wasn't freezing me out because she was unhappy. She was freezing me out so I'd leave. So she could keep the house. She'd been building an exit for over a year, and she expected me to fund it. I pulled the phone records next. Joint plan. Her calls to Linda averaged 40 minutes, 3 times a week. But there was another number, a Louisville area code I didn't recognize. Short calls, once a week, going back 9 months. I dialed it from Ed's phone the next morning. Thompson Realty, this is Kevin. I hung up. 9 months of condo shopping. Not a whim. A project. I sat in my truck outside Ed's house. The engine was running, but I wasn't going anywhere. I thought about Bernheim Forest. I like this. She said it with her hand on my arm, and I believe she meant all of it. The drive, the quiet, the us. Maybe she did then. Maybe the woman in 2014 and the woman shopping for condos were 2 different people wearing the same face. Saturday morning. Sarah drove up from Nashville. Unannounced. She walked in with that look daughters get when they know something they don't want to know. Dad, can we talk? We sat on the back porch. December cold. She had her hands wrapped around a coffee mug. Mom called me Thursday night, Sarah said. After she cooked you dinner. She wasn't upset, Dad. She was laughing. Telling me about a condo she looked at in Prospect. 2 bedrooms, a balcony, walking distance to restaurants. Thursday night, I said. After the roast chicken. After the candles. Sarah looked at me. She cooked you dinner? Blue dress. Wine. Touched my hand. Sarah's face aged 10 years in a single second. Dad. She's performing. I know, sweetheart. Then why are you still here? Because I needed to be sure. And now I am. The next week, everything I had left drained out. Not a strategy. I just had nothing remaining. Monday. No good morning. She checked the hallway at 7:15. I saw her shadow pause under the guest room door. I stared at the ceiling and didn't move. Tuesday. She mentioned needing groceries. I said, okay, and went back to my book. She stood in the doorway for 10 seconds waiting for more. There wasn't more. Wednesday. I went to the gym instead of fixing the kitchen faucet she'd asked about. Since when do you go to the gym? She asked when I came back. Since today. Thursday. She suggested we drive out to Bernheim Forest. Our place. She said it casually, like it just came to her. But I could feel it, calculate it. She was reaching for the one memory she knew still worked. I'm meeting Ed for coffee, I said. Her jaw tightened. You're always with Ed now. Ed doesn't charge me $14,000 for the privilege of his company. She went quiet. That one landed. Friday. She found out I'd frozen the joint credit card. That was a different kind of conversation. You froze the card? She was standing in the doorway of the guest room. Arms crossed. I did. Robert, that's my card. It's our card. With $41,000 on it that you forgot to mention. She went white. Not angry white. Caught white. I don't know what you're talking about. Charleston. The spa in Asheville. The real estate agent. The condo in Prospect with the balcony. Every word landed like a stone in still water. Who told you that? The statements told me, Diane. Your own statements. I watched her cycle through it. Panic. Calculation. Decision. She chose her move. Tears. She sat down on the edge of the guest bed, the bed she'd banished me to, and put her face in her hands. I'm scared, Robert. I'm so scared. I retired, and everything fell apart. Nobody needs me. The students don't need me. Sarah doesn't need me. And you just kept going. Your truck. Your garage. Ed, you didn't even notice I was drowning. Her voice cracked on the word drowning. Something in my chest cracked with it. Because I knew that fear. I'd been living it for 6 weeks in the guest bedroom. Invisible in my own house. I almost reached for her hand. Almost. Thursday morning. I woke up and smelled coffee. Not from the kitchen, from outside the guest room door. She'd left a mug on the hallway floor. Black, the way I take it. A small thing. The kind of thing that wrecks you when you're already broken. I picked it up. Drank it standing in the doorway. That evening she knocked on the guest room door. Opened it without waiting. She had that soft look, the one from the dinner. The blue dress face. Can we talk? Really talk? We can talk. She sat on the edge of the bed. I've been thinking. About what you said. About how I stopped listening. You're right. I did. She paused. I want to fix this, Robert. I want to try. And here's where I almost broke. Because her eyes were wet and her voice was small, and she was sitting on the bed where I'd spent 6 weeks staring at the ceiling wondering what I'd done wrong. Then she said, I just need the house settled first. For both of us. When this is all over, we need to figure out the house situation. When this is all over. Not, when we fix this. When this is all over. She was already past us. She just needed the paperwork to catch up. Good night, Diane. She searched my face for something she could use. Didn't find it. Left the room. Sunday morning. A knock at the front door. Carl Weber, Linda's ex-husband. They divorced 3 years ago. Nobody ever talked about why. Carl stood on my porch with a manila folder. I should have brought this sooner, he said. Sit down. Printed emails. Between Linda and Diane. Going back 14 months. Linda. Step 1. Cut off affection. Make him feel unwanted. Men like Robert can't handle feeling invisible. He'll either leave or get so desperate he'll agree to anything. Diane. What if he pushes back? Linda. Then step 2. Cry. Tell him you're scared of getting old. Tell him you feel invisible. Men like him can't resist a woman in pain. It buys you 3 to 4 weeks. Linda. Step 3. Separate your finances before he catches on. By the time he sees it, you'll have the condo and he'll have the mortgage. I read every page at the kitchen table. Carl sat across from me, quiet. He didn't need to explain. He'd lived through the same playbook. Same coach. Same steps. Linda had run it on him first, and now she was teaching her sister. The tears on Thursday night. The roast chicken. The blue dress. The coffee outside the guest room door. I'm scared, Robert. I want to fix this. All of it. Choreographed. Every word a step in someone else's manual written by a woman who'd already destroyed one marriage with the same playbook. I sat there for a long time after Carl left. The house was empty. Diane was with Linda, rehearsing the next step, probably. I thought about 28 years. The yellow house we painted that first summer. Sarah's first steps on the kitchen floor. Bernheim Forest. I like this. Then I thought about what Diane wrote to Linda 7 months ago. Robert will never say no. He's not built that way. I picked up my phone and called Ruth Chun. I'm ready. Monday. I left the folder on the kitchen table. Open. With a yellow sticky note on top. Linda did this to Carl first. Ask him how it ended. I wasn't home when she found it. Ed and I were at a diner on Frankfurt Avenue. 2 coffees and nothing that needed saying. My phone lit up. 17 texts in 10 minutes. Frantic. Then furious. Then a voicemail that started with tears and ended with, "You had no right to go through my things." I didn't respond. Tuesday. She showed up at Ed's house. Knocked on the door at 8 in the morning. Where is he? What are you filling his head with? Ed's wife, Margaret, opened the door. Looked at Diane for a long moment. Diane. Go home. He's my husband. Then maybe start treating him like one. Margaret told me later that the look on Diane's face wasn't anger. It was the look of someone who realized the audience stopped clapping. Wednesday. I came back to get some clothes. She was sitting at the kitchen table. Same spot where she'd slid me the bills 3 weeks earlier. No makeup. Hair uncombed. The kind of undone that isn't performance. Sit down, she said. Please. I sat. I don't know how to explain it, she said. I retired and I vanished. Nobody needed anything from me. Not the students. Not Sarah. And you kept going. Your routine. Your friends. You didn't even slow down. I looked at you and thought, he doesn't need me either. I needed you, Diane. You moved me to the guest room. I know. The emails. Linda's steps. The credit cards. The condo. I know what they look like. They look like a woman who spent 14 months planning to leave her husband and take everything she could carry. Her hands were flat on the table. She stared at them. Linda told me it was the only way to start over. That men like you never change. That you'd keep me small forever. And you believed her. I believed her because I was terrified. And she was the only one talking. I was talking, Diane. You stopped listening. Quiet. The clock in the hallway. The fridge humming. Nothing else. What do you want, Robert? I want to stop sleeping in the guest room of my own house. I want to stop paying for a life I'm not invited to. And I want you to hear something. She looked up. You said my breathing irritates you. But that's not what irritated you. What irritated you was a man who kept saying yes. Because as long as I kept saying yes, you never had to ask yourself a single hard question. She didn't respond. I wasn't looking for one. I stood up. I'm staying at Ed's. Ruth will be in touch about the paperwork. Robert. I stopped at the door. I'm sorry. Small voice. Cracked. I know you are. I drove to Ed's place. Louisville in winter. Dark past your headlights. Quiet past your windows. Ruth filed the papers that week. Quick and clean. The way endings always are when someone's already done the grieving in a guest bedroom. 3 months later. Kitchen of a rented house on Payne Street. 1 bedroom. My truck outside. Coffee by the window. The quiet was different, not empty. Just mine. Sarah drove up one Saturday. We sat on the porch. Mom moved, she said. Not the Prospect condo. Something smaller. Linda and her had a falling out. I nodded. Patterns eat everyone who follows them. Carl could have told Diane that. I guess he tried in his way. Dad, are you okay? I looked at my daughter. 26 years old. Her mother's eyes. My quiet. Yes, sweetheart. I'm okay. She reached over and squeezed my hand. We sat there watching the street. Nothing to fix. Nothing to explain. That Sunday morning in the kitchen. The blue mug. The envelope. 28 years of yes. She wrote to Linda. Robert will never say no. Turns out the hardest word is only 2 letters. And the best thing I ever did was finally say it. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.